Welcome to the first week of 90 Days to a Great Partnership. Thanks so much for joining me, taking time out of your busy schedule to watch this, and I hope you do the exercises that go along with it. You'll get so much more out of it. Today what we're going to start with is looking deep into the idea of response to pressure. Now this we'll revisit again. It is a foundation training principle. So we don't want to just touch on it once and leave it. But today what we're going to look at is more moving the horse's hips. We're going to start with the halter, and that may seem again basic, but we'll go into some really significant problems that you can solve if you just revisit these ideas on the halter. We're going to touch just very briefly on response to pressure regarding the bit, and we're going to really look at moving your horse's hips. Now, the reason that we're going to look at that today is I want to get you started right off the bat, really feeling the back legs of your horse, okay? Moving the hips is much easier for the horse to understand and do. It's easier for us to visually understand, I think. Maybe harder for us to feel on the horse's back when we're first learning it. But practice does make perfect, and I know you can, but I want to get you started right away feeling that and practicing feeling that. Okay, it's really helpful if you have some mirrors up in your arena as well, that you can do it in front of the mirror and see what's going on at the same time, or get somebody to record it while you're doing it. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to move on to the very, very basic idea of how a horse moves. This again is going to translate into you really knowing where the legs are at all times, because we know in theory that horses need to be ridden from back to front, and so much of the time that doesn't happen. We end up riding them the other way. We get concentrated on their head being down, or turning them because we pull on one rein, and you really need to keep your horse in balance and keep his whole body in a connection where he understands it. It's a big unified ball of energy that's moving the pair of you. And you need to understand where their legs are to really create that. So to help understand that, we're going to look at how a horse moves, and we're going to look at that in slow motion. And we've got some visual aids to help you see the legs and what they're doing through each movement. And then we're going to start talking about just basic position stuff we can do, as well as some natural and artificial aids. So that's where we're going to go. So looking first at response to pressure with the halter. Now, if you have problems with your horse pulling back, with your horse kind of dragging you around or rooting on the noseband of the halter, these all come back to the idea of the horse understanding the proper response to pressure there, as well as teaching it that it, maybe they don't have a proper understanding because no one ever taught them. Timing of release is really important, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, if you have problems with horses going into horse trailers or into wash racks, these all tie in. So even though you may be happy with how your horse leads, if you don't consider how respect for the halter leads into other things, then you may really have the solution to your problem somewhere else that you hadn't realized before. So we're going to look at that. So let's get started. Just a quick review of the parts of the halter, just to make sure we're using the same vocabulary. The part that goes around their nose is the nose band, the part behind the ears, the head stall, or what I'll call the head stall, and then joining the two will be the cheek piece. Halter. So we have Bardot here to help us. Bardot is a 15-year-old Canadian warm blood mare by the stallion Biazzo, who was an Oldenburg stallion, and and she's going to help show us a little bit about the halter. So we've looked at the parts of the halter, and a response to pressure is when we're thinking about the head stall of the halter and we want to lead, what are we asking them to do? We're asking them to follow that pressure, okay? And any horse that pulls back needs work on this, right?
especially if they've pulled back and broken things, because then they've learned that the release from pressure is to break things. And of course, we've also got the noseband of the halter. So when we're leading and they're very excited, or when we'd like to stop, and we put pressure on the noseband of the halter, she should stop. Okay, so again, to start, it's on the headstall, and to stop, on the noseband. Now what if we want to turn her this way? It's actually the opposing side. So the cheek piece and the side of the nose piece on this side, if I want to turn her towards me, will work. And oppositely, of course, if you put the pressure on that side, she should turn away. Okay, and that's why you see people leading, and they lead holding the lead rope really close to the clip. They have no leverage there. Okay, so a good rule of thumb is about that much. What I wanted to look at is the response to pressure from your hand. So we've talked about that naturally horses move into pressure, right? You think of a foal that's worried, where does it go? It crowds next to mom. So the first thing that we need to teach our horse, and even on the ground, is to move away from pressure. So if I wanted to move Bardot's hips, my finger pressure would be here. And I want to move her bum away from me. Okay, and of course, you're looking for that step that she just made where the inside hind crosses over the outside front. So putting the pressure on the ribs and looking at the feet. Okay, that wasn't a good step. That was. Okay? Again, if you put pressure on the shoulder, she should move away. And her feet should step over. And we know this from just grooming them. Okay? Now, a combination of a little pressure on the noseband and some pressure on the chest, you should be able to back your horse up. Now, notice there's always a release with the timing. Okay? The release with the timing is a reward. The matter of picking up feet is a response to pressure. So you want to be able to touch his legs all the way down, and he's not super at it, but be able to touch them all the way down without him picking them up. Okay, because one day you're going to want to bandage that leg. Maybe he has an injury, or you've jumped him and you want to put stable wraps on. We're going to put polos on today, so maybe you'd like to put some wraps on to make him look a little fancier for extra support. Boots, anything like that, you want him to be able to just stand there with his legs. But if you put pressure on in a certain way, you also want him to pick it up. So you teach him. Put your hand down and support it, and he picks it up. Okay? Now that's a huge, huge thing of trust for a horse to give you his means to run away. So support him. Make him feel safe that he gave you his foot. You know, you watch little kids learn how to pick up their feet, and, you know, sometimes they're just so little. And the horse just keeps putting it down. Well, it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel supported. And the other thing that people do is notice the other legs of the horse. Okay, so if I was trying to pick up that left front that I just put down right now, he's got all his weight on it. He's not going to be able to listen as well. So you want to shift them so that they're either light on the foot you want to pick up or even on both feet, so they can make a small adjustment. So if I wanted to go to the hind foot, same thing. I run my hand down his leg, squeeze the tendon, and then I get my hand underneath and I support it. Now he needs a moment to relax, okay? And a lot of horses do, especially if they're older. So I can't really pick it with it way back underneath him, but I allow him to bring it forward, relax it down. Relax it down, relax it down. And I have to teach him that. But again, value that. It's a huge thing of trust for a horse to do that for you. Okay? And sometimes we say they're naughty and they're just stiff, or they shake their leg a little bit before they give it to you. Well, up here, if they're stiff and you pick their foot up, they might need that moment to just relax it. Okay? Just in terms of moving the hips, what we're going to do is we're just going to ask him right where your leg would go back to move his hips. So you're going to take your fingers and just ask him to step his inside hind across. Okay? And now he should only step as much as you ask, so a light pressure requires just a light response. A harder pressure requires a harder response. And you do, I'm going to try not to block the camera here, you do want to have the inside hind step across. So that blue leg now to step forward and across the other one. Okay? Now I can't, very good. I can't force him to, I don't want him to fly away from my hand. That's important. And the other thing is, you have to give him the freedom through your horse, the freedom through his head. So a common thing I have when I see when people first start teaching their horse this, is they're actually restricting their head too much, and they're just pulling him around. Okay? Doing a circle like this is actually not doing that proper step, because you want to think, I'm on him, I want him to move his hips just over this way. So I just want to be able to push and get a response. And his front legs do move, but they can be on a very small circle. And you can step way across. And you noticed I used my voice, some sort of encouragement each step. The other thing that people do is they put their hand on and they clamp. That doesn't give him a reward for response. And of course, the timing of it is important. His foot is down. I ask him to initiate it, and he moves it. But when he's got it clamped down already, he can't listen to you. So that's the timing of it. And just let it be natural to you, right? Don't think too hard about it. And then you can see how you can apply that to the stuff under saddle. I am not as young as I used to be able to vault onto him, but he's actually 16, 3 hands high, so I'm just going to use the mounting block, and I will come back. But I teach this to very young horses before I even sit on them. I'm working with some of the steps on the ground as I start them under saddle. Okay, so the same principle. Here's my leg. I ask him to step his inside hind. Okay, so from here, I should just be able to move his hips. And that was not a quality step, but I would never punish him for doing that. I would ask again why it wasn't a quality step. It wasn't ahead of in front of the other. It was backwards and behind the other, but it was still lateral. Okay, and if your horse has never been exposed to this idea of training, that is going to be a common mistake that your horse will make. Okay, so I don't ever get mad at that. I push and ask for another. Good. Okay. So that's your homework. First on the ground and then under saddle. So here's a response to the bit. Here's a response to the bit. In the simplest form, no leg. Here's the response to the bit. Here's the response to the bit. Here's a response to the bit. Okay? So the next section, what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn him loose, and I'm going to film him in the gaits, and I'm going to take some slow motion footage so you can really understand how their legs move as they move through the walk, the trot, and the canter.
One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what's he gonna do? He's gonna roll. Okay, baby. Now it's time. So we're going to just look at the footfall for a second. I'm going to give you a moment. Just watch. See if you can see the order of it. So it's right hind, right front, left hind, left front, right hind, right front, left hind, left front, right hind, right front, left hind, left front. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see it?
See it?
Okay, so the trot is a 2-beat gait. That means they're picking their legs up 2 at a time in diagonal pairs. So a front with the opposite back is moving at the same time. Okay, so we're going to, this explains the colored wraps. We're going to look at his legs, white legs, blue legs, white legs, blue legs. And this is the rhythm that we would rise to. White, blue, white, blue. This is the one that's the easiest to see. So the canter is a little bit harder to see the movement of the feet and the footfall of it. So we'll just walk it through. It's outside hind, diagonal pair, inside front, outside hind, diagonal pair, inside front, outside hind, diagonal pair, inside front. Can you see that? So this is why we worry about our canter leads, because we're going to look at the right lead as well, but I really want to take the time to understand this. So bear with me if you already have this. But it is interesting that most of us, he's going to pick it up again in a sec, most of us don't totally have a grasp of when you're bringing a horse around in a tighter canter circle, it is the outside hind you want to guide around. You want to influence that to go more underneath himself so that he can be in balance as he turns. We do not want to pull the inside front around because that's kind of the end of it, okay? So we're going to look at the right lead just for comparison's sake. Now Balanchine's going to get a little sassy, so we'll let him do that. Okay, so again, we're looking at the outside hind, diagonal pair, inside front. 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 Okay, you see that? So now because he's going to the right and the right front is leading, but also the right hind is leading, he's on the right canter lead. Now if they're described as cross-firing, cross-cantering, disunited, that just means that their back legs are still on the lead that they would be to go to the left. So they're cantering kind of to the left with their back legs and to the right with their front legs, or sometimes the other way around. Okay, so they don't have a full lead. And when we're talking about being late with your changes, A lot of times when horses are doing their changes, they'll change their front legs and then their back legs. The odd horse will change their back legs and then their front, but you want ideally a flying change to go from left to right without a step a trot, and with both the front and the back legs coming at the same time, jumping through at the same time. So that I can work on it. Okay, so I'm a little distorted. Yeah, my head's small, but that's okay. You can see the core part of me. Shoulders over your hips here. So I always tell my students, visualize shoulders over your rib cage over your hips, hips over your ankle. Okay, there should be a pretty straight line. Now, a lot of times, this is a dressage saddle. A lot of people that ride in a dressage saddle have way too long of stirrups. You should still be able to push your heels down. Okay? Now, a good check to see if you're truly, whether you're in an English jumping saddle, an all-purpose saddle, a dressage saddle, and even the Western, although Western tends to put you more in the chair seat. Okay, you sit more on your seat bones. So standing up, just truly standing up, finding your balance. Okay, you got to put, it's easier in a jumping saddle than a dressage saddle, but you want to put all your weight over your foot and find that balance where you're not falling forward and your leg swings back and you're not falling back because gravity, you can catch yourself with your horse's mane. Okay, but truly finding it. Okay, and then just gently sink back into the saddle. That'll get you started in a very good position. It'll also get the right part of your leg sitting on the saddle. You don't want to be sitting like this, where your knees are open. I'll just turn him so you can see that. And you get the duck feet. You don't want to be sitting like that, okay, because the wrong part of your leg is on the saddle. You want your toes slightly out so you don't collapse your ankle. Look at my foot, okay? That, when you really force your toes forward, not only is it uncomfortable, but you're risking collapsing this part of your ankle, okay? So you want your toes slightly out, but not ridiculously out, so that the back of your calf is on the horse, because you're not going to be sensitive with the different parts of your leg, okay? We're going to wrap up week 1 by going through what the natural aids are. We're going to talk a lot about the natural aids in this program, and just so we have a comparison, we're also going to mention a few of the artificial aids you commonly see. So starting with the natural aids, the first natural aid is our legs. Notice the arrow is pointing both to the upper and the lower leg. The second is our back and the suppleness of our back. The third natural aid is our hands. The fourth natural aid is our seat. The fifth natural aid is our voice. And the sixth natural aid is our body weight. So moving on to the artificial aids, they can be spurs, whips and crops, martingales, as well as other things like draw reins or tie downs. So thank you for all of your great attention. I hope you enjoyed week 1's lesson. Don't forget to do the exercises that go with it. I hope you have a great week. I look forward to seeing you again in week 2 of the program, where we'll look at energy systems and we'll look at the training scale and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. Enjoy your week and enjoy your horse. Thanks.